Hey everyone, and welcome to this month's webinar, which is all about Cybersecurity Awareness Month and running some strategies. This talk that I'm going to do today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Cybersecurity Awareness Month kit, which is a huge help when it comes to doing this. But a lot of this stuff, even if you don't want to use the kit, which I highly recommend you use it, is stuff that you can apply anyways. And this is stuff that I've learned over years of being around this, seeing this going on. Now, I've been with KnowBe4 for over 9 years now. My name's Erich Kron. I'm a CISO Advisor here, and I've seen a lot of things. One of the cool things I've seen over the years is a lot of the different programs that organizations have put in place as things have matured. Now, when I started like 9 years ago, awareness training was awareness training. It was much more simple than what we have these days. But it's definitely evolved and matured throughout the years. Now, one of the things that's really cool to see is at our KB4Con conferences over several years, we had this thing called the Sharky Awards. And the Sharky Awards gave awards to customers that did really cool stuff. And I got to see some really sweet ideas about what they did, especially for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So I want to share some of that stuff with you so that maybe you can take advantage of this in a very good way. Now, moving forward here, something I want us to understand is some people still think this is kind of what it looks like when we're talking about the adversary, right? The kids in the basement eating pizza, drinking Mountain Dew, whatever. But unfortunately, we underestimate the adversaries way too much. And that's why things like Cybersecurity Awareness Month are so important, because it really does give us a chance to get out there and really push hard for people to learn a little bit more about these scams, the attacks, and things like that. And here's the first time you're going to hear me say this, but I'm going to say this throughout. One of the most important things we can do is also remember that attacks are not only happening to organizations, but also to individuals. And if we can tap into that and make sure that people understand, hey, wait a minute, this is something that affects you as an individual as well as the organization, and we can leverage that, we can get a lot more engagement. Now, what's interesting about these cybercrime groups these days, like I said, not in the basement, none of that. Well, they're actually operating like modern businesses. And it's a little eye-opening. When I first started seeing some of this, the organization that's going on throughout these groups is mind-boggling. I've heard of them even having like HR groups and like going out, they're recruiting, they're getting folks together like that. They're doing some really amazing stuff. And the reason because that is there's a lot of money at stake here. We often don't think about how much money is at stake. Well, there's a Bloomberg article that I want to reference here because I really think this brings it home to people. It gives us a way to kind of look at this. And this study said that if you took cybercrime globally, and you were to put it together and you were to treat it as a GDP or gross domestic profit, it would be the third largest GDP on the planet. So that's after the US and after China, then comes cybercrime. So if you think about that and you think about the amount of money being used, stolen, however you want to say it, in cybercrime these years, it really kind of drives home how well resourced these groups are, how organized they have to be able to operate at this level and to be able to make this kind of money. They kind of have to have it together. And that's one of the super important things to understand here. Okay. These folks really know what they're doing. I wish they would use this for good, not evil. But if you look at things like ransomware, where we're talking about $2.7 million average ransom being paid, that's a lot of money. That doesn't include like the time down. That doesn't include, all of the other costs that come with this. And that's not included in this figure either. This figure is simply what they're earning from cybercrime. Now, remember, cybercrime is not only hitting organizations, it's not just all these breaches or wiring money to the wrong place or any of that stuff, but it's also hitting people in their own wallets. It's attacking families. I mean, we've all heard some pretty scary stuff out there, like the AI scams where somebody gets a phone call and they say, "Hey, we've kidnapped little Johnny." I mean, that's a very, very scary thing. And they're using these fear tactics. They're using tools like AI and deepfakes to be able to talk people into giving up money very quickly. Now, pressure and stress due to emotions makes us do silly things, and they take advantage of that. In all of my years of doing this and all of the incident response that I've had to do and things like that, I tend to like to talk to the people afterwards and say, okay, what happened? And it's important here with your messaging that you're not blaming them for what happened, but you want to find out the things that went wrong, like what caused it to happen and what can we do in the future to kind of stop this sort of thing. And something I've heard over and over and over again is people say, you know what? I felt like it was kind of weird, but man, the pressure was on. I thought I was going to get in trouble if I didn't do it. And so I went ahead and I did it. And what's important about that is they knew. They knew something was off about it, but for whatever reason, they were afraid that if they didn't do what they thought was right, that there would be a negative consequence. And some of that comes back to organizations and the culture that we have within them in our security areas, right? Like we don't always have a great reputation for being approachable in security. And I think we need to change that a little bit. But that's part of what we can do during this month too, is let people see who we are as security people and make better relationships with people. So when something happens, let's say something strange is happening, and they kind of go, man, there's a weird feeling about this. We want them to call in and we want them to say, sir, ma'am, hey, look, I'm not sure about this, but this feels kind of weird for me. Would you check it out? We want that kind of stuff to happen because that's how we keep the bad stuff from eventually going on where we don't know about it and then we're recovering. So great time to get ourselves in front of users. Now, some organizations are going to be able to do this more than others. Okay, I get that. And we're going to talk about all kinds of different levels here, and you can pick and choose from them regardless of what level you're at. In other words, are you at a place where your leadership isn't necessarily even remotely engaged? Well, that's one level that people are at. And then you have those folks, those organizations that are just all in, like leadership, the CEO, the board, they're all in for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Maybe you fall somewhere in the middle. We're going to talk about all of that, and you can pull from all of these things. Now, when we talk about defense of this cybercrime, it's important to understand that it's a combination of tech and humans. And for far too long, I think technical people, we've always relied on the technical side of things. We like tech tools. We tell it to do something and it's going to do what we do or what we tell it to do. Sometimes we don't tell it the right things to do, but it's going to do what its instructions are, where people, that's a whole different story. So I find that throughout the years, people have not really wanted to engage with humans, and I don't blame you. Okay. I love working around servers and tech. Like my happiest days have been in the data center, fans whirring, can't hear, working with servers and not a person around. But we can't just fall back on tech. It's a combination of these things. Now, this is where human risk management comes in. HRM is sort of a new term in the industry. It's definitely being evolving at this point and being defined a little bit more by everybody. But it's a step up from just security awareness training. It's not just training and phishing. It's actually taking all of the human stuff and addressing that as the problem that it is. So the breaches that we see, data being shared to the wrong people, that often comes in the form of, oops, I misaddressed an email out to somebody, included somebody on the list that isn't supposed to be there, right? That's more than just a phishing problem. It's a problem with people using bad credentials. It's a problem with people not enabling MFA or trying to work their way around. Maybe they reuse the credentials. They use easy ones because it's easy for them to remember, and they don't want to go through the trouble of using a password vault because it feels like friction to them. And they don't understand why they would want to take on that additional friction to kind of do the same thing that they were already doing. And that's a valid argument, but we have to explain to them why. And that's, again, where this month comes into play. I don't want you to just focus on phishing. I don't want you to just focus on those stats. I want us to think about all of the things we can do in human risk and address them during this time. It keeps it from getting boring, too. If you hear the same thing week after week after week, and if you're able to address things throughout the entire month, we don't want 4 weeks of exactly the same thing going on. We want to look at stuff and we want to tackle where the real risk is. So what is this Cybersecurity Awareness Month? Well, it was put together back in 2004 by a couple of groups, and it's spread to this international movement. It's a global thing, which kind of tells me some people have found value in it. Now, I've been here again for quite a while, and I've watched this grow and grow and grow from something small to something that's definitely evolved into kind of a big deal for a lot of organizations. Like, they'll plan this stuff for a very long time. And that doesn't mean if you haven't already started planning that you should panic. No, it's not like that. But I'm seeing a lot more engagement in this, and I'm seeing it being advertised and being talked about outside of our organizations. I'm talking about mainstream news here. I'm talking about on these main TV channels, advertisements, news groups talking about it, things like this. People are going to hear about this probably outside of your channels, which is really kind of cool because they realize, oh, this is a bigger thing than just somebody in my organization talking about it. Now, it's something that if you're a global organization, it can be a little bit challenging sometimes to engage with everybody across the globe. But this is really kind of an important time to engage that. And you may find that you will break up some of your Cybersecurity Awareness Month plan into different plans for different parts of the globe. And that comes down to culture a lot of times. Many of us are very US centric and we think in a US way, but I can tell you in these other places, in these other global areas, people think a whole lot differently. So we want to rethink how we're applying what we're doing during this month to them. So where do we start? How do we get started on this thing? What do we do? Well, step one, we come up with a plan and do some measurable goals. And then, and then step three is profit. No, this is a call back to the infamous Underpants Gnomes episode from South Park, where basically this whole group, they had this idea of stealing underpants and then they were going to profit, but they really hadn't thought through the middle parts. And unfortunately, I see a lot of organizations or a lot of people do this. They're like, okay, cool. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We're going to do stuff. And unfortunately, stuff doesn't necessarily, it's not a great way to use this time. So what we want to do is we want to break it down into a couple of things. Yes, we want those measurable goals. And that's a key thing right there is measurable goals. Now, there's subjective measurements, there's objective measurements. I want something that's objective. I want to know, did we do better? Did people learn from this? Did it move the needle? Did it actually change something? If you try to come up with something and measure goals that are like, did we do better this year than last year? And you're asking people through a survey, do you feel better or worse? Or was this good or bad? That has a limited value to it. So think about this, and we'll talk about some of the goals, some of the things you're going to measure with here, but make sure you have measurable goals with this as well. Some people also just say, I'm going to throw out a bunch of training to people during this time. It's going to be fantastic. And then the month will end and we move on. But they're not really attaining any information from this. And I think that's a big mistake. Now, step two of this is once you kind of come up with this idea of what you want to do, recruit other people. Talk to other people. Everybody has these people, I like to call them champions within the organization, that are kind of security focused already. They already have that security mentality in place, and start leveraging those folks. Talk to them. Talk to people in leadership. See how much backing you have from leadership, from middle managers up to the CEO and the executives. You want to know kind of where you're at with that, and share this plan with them. Say, hey, you know what? We're going to spend 4 weeks, 4 campaigns. We're going to gamify it. We're going to do these sorts of things, and see if they're on board. Get them on board. And the more you can have on board in leadership, the more backing, the easier things get, or the bigger you can make these programs. Now, that's not to say if your leadership isn't on board and they're like, yeah, whatever, that doesn't mean you got to give up. There's things you can do on the low effort side. And we'll talk about the low effort side, the medium effort side, and the high effort side, which is going to require that stuff. Also, tell your employees. Start building some hype, message some stuff however you can. If you can send out an email to people, send out an email that goes, hey, you know what? This Cybersecurity Awareness Month thing is coming up. And by the way, following that, man, we're heading right into the holidays. And think about the scams and stuff that go on during the holidays with people trying to get your money for the new PlayStation or whatever it is, right? Use that messaging to get people interested in engaging in the month of October. It's a perfect time to use the forward-looking stuff to go, we're going to try to save you and your family as well as the organization. That's something you're going to hear me say a lot as well. Now, again, when you're done with this, let's say at the end of all this, one of the most important steps that I also see people skip on is measuring the outcome. Remember, we want to have measurable goals. So measuring that and reporting it to pretty much anyone that'll listen. And I say that tongue in cheek a little bit. But when it comes down to it, yes, you want to report to leadership, but you also want to report to the individuals in the organization if you can. In other words, you want to say, hey, check it out. We had, 90% engagement rate in the fishing tournament, or whatever it is you want to do, whatever it is you're doing. We had so many people learning about the cybersecurity stuff. They were taking training that was, given to them just for fun, and just talk about that, but keep the hype going after this and let other people know. So maybe they feel like, wow, I probably should have engaged in this year. Maybe next year will be better. Maybe when you start doing your monthly stuff or continuing on, they're going to engage with that too. I think that's important. So let's break some of this down a little bit. All right. First of all, measurable goals, right? You want that plan with measurable goals. Well, you can't just wing it. You may get through some stuff, but it's not going to be a wise use of your time. This month is, again, we have all this hype behind this, and we can thank the government organizations that came up with this and spread it widely. For us to be able to finally have a time that we can stand up and go, okay, let's pay attention this month. All right. Now, there's many ways to use this. Some are going to go all out, crazy games, prizes. I've heard of some pretty amazing stuff going on out there. They'll do big budget productions. I've been involved in that too. They've brought us in as evangelists or advisors to do presentations live for some of these organizations. And they have a stage set up. They bring you in, they bring everybody in. It's an all hands, and they do some amazing, cool stuff. They have leadership involved and all that, but that may not be where you're at. And that's okay. But you want to kind of understand and plan accordingly. Okay. you are going to be able to determine how much you can do, especially if you're just getting started in like an HRM program. Sometimes it's hard for leadership to understand how much you can make changes doing this. Now, you need only look around or hear the stories to see that, yeah, this can make a big engagement. But I mean, leadership is focused on all of the other business type stuff. They may not understand just how valuable this month is. So don't be too concerned about that if you're in that boat. And here's the thing. I mean, the awareness kit that we're talking about here, the Cybersecurity Awareness Month kit, it's designed to do some of the heavy lifting for you. It's here to provide you with some templates, some ideas, and you can go completely off script if you want to, or you can kind of align with what it is we've given you to already kind of work with this and make it a whole lot easier. Because let's be honest, many of us haven't run a campaign like this before, and we could use the help. Now, you can apply this not only to the themes we're doing, but a lot of this information can be applied to your own themes. Maybe you're in an industry that deals with pets, and instead of dealing with this year's theme, which is kind of like the 8-bit arcade stuff, and I kind of like it. It's fun. Maybe you're doing something more pet related. That's fine, but you can apply some of these things to that and use a different theme if you're going to go thematic at all. Now, some of the ideas for the low effort, low cost stuff. I think this is important because this is kind of a foundation that everybody can build on. In other words, if you're in a medium effort type of area, you may be able to take some things from this and then add to them. But some of the key things we want to look at, okay, from the low effort side. First of all, don't get frustrated. It's okay. It's all right if you don't go crazy with this, especially in the first year that you're really trying to engage in the month. All right. Start with a messaging campaign. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, and the messaging is super important around stuff like this. And I say that because I see a lot of people use this as a way to just fish people like crazy. Now, there's some key things to that, and we will talk about that. But you want to message to people. You want to let them know it's coming. You want to say, hey, check it out. This month is getting you ready for the holidays, like I mentioned before. This is to help you protect yourself. This is to help protect the organization. Look, a lot of industries, you're in a high value area, whether it's manufacturing, which is a big target of ransomware. If you're in healthcare, which is another huge target for ransomware, plus everything else, I really feel for you healthcare folks. Those can be, very targeted. You let people know, hey, check it out. Scams are up, attacks are up. We really want to be ready. And October is our month to shine. We're going to give you training opportunities. We're going to give you mandatory training possibly, or we're going to give you other training that you can choose to take. And there's some really fun stuff. Like, message it, get it out to people. It doesn't cost anything to send some emails to everybody, but make sure you've double checked it. Make sure you've checked your spelling. Make sure you're okayed with leadership to send one of these or several of these emails leading up to it. And then throughout the month, you want to continue to message as well. Now, I want you to remember that during this time, our focus is not just on awareness. And that's where a lot of people new to any HRM program or awareness program kind of make a mistake. We hear awareness as part of it, and we think, okay, if we make people aware, that's going to change behavior. But unfortunately, that may change behavior in a few people, but it's not going to change behavior in everybody. If your goal is simply to make people aware of something, you're not going to be as successful as you could be. So our goal should always be behavior change. Keep that in mind as we do this. We want to change those behaviors. So when we're doing things, when we're teaching people things, if we're assigning training or making training available to everybody, if we do that, we want to couple it with, how does this affect a behavior that you may have? So if our training, our education, let's say for that week, has a lot to do with credential theft and or reuse, et cetera, we want to be able to talk to people about what to change in their day-to-day behaviors that will impact that. So, hey, look, remember, don't use the same passwords for your social media as you use for work, as you use for your bank accounts. Go change those now. Start driving the behavior part, not just going, this is a bad thing to do. Now, I like the weekly emails in this, talking about some of the common scams. So plan this out a little bit. And maybe the first time you talk about common scams for, oh, I don't know, wire transfer or gift card or any of that. Or you can go straight to the personal stuff, such as the phone calls or the emails saying that you were late to jury duty, you didn't show up for jury duty. Now there's a warrant out for your arrest unless you pay this fine, right? We can talk about those things during each week. We can build those out, but pick one or two of them and explain how that works in a very easy way that's relatable to people. Now, relating to people is an important piece here. If they don't see how it relates to them, or they don't understand how it works within their sphere of influence or people or reasons, then they're not going to change that behavior. But if we can talk to them in a way that makes them understand that, and that's a very, very important thing to do. We want to kind of keep it short and sweet, though. Maybe in a low effort kind of situation, you may not be able to spend a lot of time on this. If leadership says, hey, you know what, we don't have time to do a lot of things for these people, I need them working, that's awesome. Maybe you offer some one-to-one stuff after hours or something along those lines. You may have to go out there and say, hey, you know what, lunchtime, I would love to talk to some people about this sort of thing. That can be very, very helpful if people want more information. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten done with one of these presentations where I'm talking to employees that they're reaching out to me on LinkedIn or whatever, going, hey, you know what, I saw this scam and this just didn't make sense to me. How does this work? Well, this is a good time to offer that stuff up, because if you can get those people engaged, they can help get other people engaged as well. So it's well worth your time personally if you want to go ahead and offer that up to people. That can help quite a bit if you're in a situation where they don't want to have you put a lot of effort into this. Okay. Now, don't dwell too much on the single topic. Definitely mix it up. That's going to make a big difference. And don't forget that, you know, phishing is important, but there's other things that matter as well, including things like the vishing, smishing, QR code scams, all of that kind of stuff. So don't just focus on the one phishing thing. Mix it up a little bit. I know we have training available in the mod store for a lot of this different kind of stuff. Maybe we make it available for people. You want to try to get leadership to at least make a statement of support. We want them to say, hey, you know what, this really is an important thing for the organization and for you as well. Maybe you have to draft an email for them and then they approve it and you send it out to everybody. Maybe that's what has to happen. Or you draft it for them and they send it out on their own. Or, I mean, you can go higher up the levels. And as you start getting into kind of the medium effort stuff, they may be willing to record a video for you. They may be willing to put something together like that as well. That's going to go out to people. It doesn't take much. Don't spend a lot of time on it necessarily, but that's an easy way to get people engaged. If leadership says, hey, this is important to us, and hopefully demonstrates some of that, that can make a big difference to whether or not people start paying attention. Now, I love phishing derbies. You're going to hear me talk a lot about phishing derbies. I've seen them do amazing things. I told you, year after year, we've done some of these Sharky Awards. I've talked to different groups where I've gone in and done talks at, and I love the phishing derby idea. Now, the key thing about phishing derbies is this. You can set them up to where you phish people fairly often. Some organizations, that means once a week. Sometimes that means once a day. And we'll talk about why people might want to do once a day later on. But the important thing about like a phishing derby, which is where you're phishing them a lot, is that it not count against them in a negative way if they mess up. Now, that may seem kind of counter, right? Because on our normal phishing campaigns, we recommend as an organization that if somebody makes a mistake, they do like a 5-minute remedial training or something like that, right? We want them to know and we want to address it at the time. But during this month, if you want to be able to fish people and expose them to a lot of different types of fishes to where they've experienced it, they've seen it, and now they may remember it if they see a real one, make it so that failures don't necessarily count against them. And that means in their long-term risk profile as well as everywhere else. Now, where it comes in, we get into the gamification stuff, which we'll talk about. I've seen places where basically if people report these fishes that they see and they do a good job of it, they get points for every fish that they report. That can be very motivating for people, and it can actually flip the script where they're like, hey, if I get 5 emails this week that are phishing emails and I report each one, that gives me 5 chances in a raffle. They're actually going to look forward to seeing those come in, right? That's pretty counter to some of the stuff that we think about. But these are things that you can do during this month that you probably can't get away with on other months. That's what's kind of cool about this. Now, when we get into the medium effort stuff, you may want to do some things like printing posters or flyers or other tips about cybersecurity and safety. All right. A lot of these are included in our Cybersecurity Awareness Month. They're pre-made posters. We also have them, if you're a customer, we also have them available as well. Just some really cool artwork you can put up the rest of the year. But this may be a good time to print some of that stuff up and start putting it around. I mean, put it in the break room, put it by the water fountains. I mean, put it in the bathroom stalls, right? Wherever you can, where you have people that you can get their attention. This is a great time to do it. And you're probably or possibly going to be allowed some leeway because this is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So be creative about that. Have a little fun with it. Start putting these things up all over the place. I really do love that the kit has these pre-designed things for you. It really kind of helps out. And you can get an idea of some other things. Maybe if you want to do your own later on, you got some ideas right there. Now, the same phishing derby as before, the ideas with that, but maybe you offer some cool prizes instead of just bragging rights. Now, if you're in a low effort area, you may just be able to have a kind of a leaderboard going, doesn't necessarily cost you anything. That's awesome. But as you get into the more medium effort types of groups or where leadership is more engaged, I see people being able to get a couple of bucks here and there for some fun little prizes like Swedish fish. Those are kind of funny, right? You report a fish, it's a good one. Somebody comes around and drops a couple things of Swedish fish on your desk. Now, that may not work like in Europe, for example, where you can't really get Swedish fish sometimes. But something like that, some fun little low budget thing to recognize that these people have done a good job. If you're keeping a leaderboard up, then maybe you do it for the leaders for that week or something. Otherwise, maybe you just hand them out. I mean, we're talking about cheap stuff here. If you're in that medium area, maybe you do a pizza party for the department or the location that reported the best ones or the biggest percentage of things. And we'll talk about a little bit more of that in the gamification. But keep in mind, you can put more into these phishing derby ideas if you have this medium stuff. Now, you know your organization and you know what you're going to be able to get away with. All right. Be creative. Now, I'm going to assume in a lot of cases, something like a Silicon Valley startup, it's going to feel a little bit different than, say, a 100-year-old law firm. I mean, sometimes that could be wrong, but you need to be the one to kind of look at that and go, all right, cool. Get some other people involved, though. Again, I mentioned earlier some of the advocates, the people that are in your organization that are already pretty heavily involved or have that security mindset, this is where you start getting those people involved, the champions, and you get them maybe hyping some stuff up, get them to have a little bit of fun as well. And maybe you do a session where you brainstorm with them about some prizes or ideas to motivate people. I mean, you don't have to do this alone. I find that other departments can be very helpful in this. HR, marketing, especially, or PR. These are folks that are already wired to help change behavior. That's kind of their job. So they may have some creative ideas. But what I like to say about this is keep it fun. You'll hear that theme a couple of times too, because this is a type of month that we want to keep it fun. Now, some of the other things we can do, again, get some executives involved. Maybe you have them do that video, maybe a little bit longer. Maybe you get a couple of them putting stuff together that we can send to employees that say, look, we want to keep you safe over the holidays. Check out the stuff that we're doing here. You're going to keep us safe here in the organization too, which pretty much everybody wants to do, right? You can get them to say what you need them to say about it, but with a positive spin. If you're planning a fishing derby, come back and have them say, all right, we are going to test some things this year and it's going to be amazing. You're going to get fished 5 times a week, but don't worry, we're not going to hold it against you if you make mistakes. But man, there are some cool prizes if you report these things or whatever your goal is. Now, hold some lunch and learns. These can be very, very popular. And I've actually been involved in some of these where we do it virtually. So some of us CISO advisors or someone maybe that is a good speaker, maybe you bring them in for a Zoom and you do a lunch and learn with folks. This gives people a chance to ask questions, non-technical people that are going to be like, hey, what about this thing? Is this a good tool to use? Do you recommend this? That's a great way to get engagement with people. And again, you want to build a rapport with people. So when they get that email, when they get that text message, or maybe even a phone call, they're going, hold on a second, and they're going to reach out to you. This is a very valuable way to do it. Lunch and learns are great. If you can, record these and make them available after the fact as well. That becomes valuable if somebody says, hey, you know what, I was kind of wondering about this. Maybe you can point them to the lunch and learn. Oh, we talked about that in this. Check it out. Again, consider maybe hiring an outside speaker. That can be useful. Bring them in on a webinar for an all hands. If you got a medium effort or something, you may be able to put out something out there that's maybe not required, but highly recommended kind of all hands meeting where you bring in a speaker, you bring in somebody who will be able to talk about that. And I'll give you some hints. Maybe talk to your local FBI office about this. I'm not kidding. The cybercrime units, a lot of times the special agents that are in that, it's a great resource to get somebody from the government to come in and talk either virtually or whatever. I've done it both ways. I've co-presented with special agents for organizations where they're willing to talk about this. They'll sit down with people and go, hey, check it out, this, and this. So you may not have to necessarily pay for all of that, but there may be some free resources. But these are great ways to get involvement with other people to where the message is not always coming from within your organization, but they're hearing it from a third party. Speakers sometimes do cost money. That may be something that you want to budget for and find out a little bit more about. But think about that. That's a great way to do this. If you have a medium effort or a budget to be able to do this, man, that can go a long, long way. So moving on to the big money deals or the high effort sort of stuff. I love seeing this, but you probably won't see this year one. I'm sorry, but it generally builds up to where the organization's entire culture has a security lean to it. This is where the leadership really understand how important cybersecurity is, and they're willing to back it because they see or they've seen how bad things can get if we don't take this seriously. So when we talk about the high effort stuff like this, all hands meetings, This is where everybody kind of gets together. Now, this is high effort. This is high cost because, well, you're going to kind of stop working during this. And so leadership has to be involved. But I've seen leaders that take this so seriously. They're like, you know what? An hour of everybody stopping and coming in and engaging in this is way cheaper than if we actually have a breach. And they tend to be willing to be involved in this a lot more. If you can get an executive to go up there and say, we care about you, this is why we're doing this, we want all of you to be aware. And by the way, here's our speaker, maybe as an intro or something along those lines, that can go a really, really long way. Now, it takes a lot of organizing. If you've ever put together an event like this where you're going to have executives live and you've got all that stuff going on, it takes some organizing. It takes testing. You have to have mics working. You have to have cameras. This is an absolute time you want to record whatever it is that's going on for folks so you can make it available throughout the year. Now, higher value prizes come into play too if you're doing a fishing derby. I've seen them do like iPods Pros. That's a really cool thing to be able to give away. Or maybe some more generic ones, like they start giving away Amazon gift cards. $100 Amazon gift cards, man, that gets people's attention. That gets them engaged as well. And it may be something that you do also at a department level. Again, you know, everybody gets to go out to lunch or something like that. Meetings with executives, man, that can be highly motivating too. You see, you got to be creative on this stuff and think about it from, all right, what are people willing to do? But don't stick inside the box. Get some other ideas. Now, I will warn you that things like higher dollar gift cards or the iPods Pros or any of those higher end sorts of things, there may be some tax implications for that. Like I've won iPod Pros during a contest we had at work, and I had to pay the taxes, the value on that. Consider that. Maybe there's a way to offset that. That's probably not something you're going to be aware of. Talk to people in payroll. Talk to some folks about that, about how does that work? Where does that play? Because the last thing you want to do is give someone a prize and they get stuck paying for part of that unexpectedly. All right. So keep that in mind. Now, this is where you definitely want to coordinate with third parties. If you are not doing this on your own, you have the high budget, high effort, okay to do that. Your leadership is like, we are all in on this year. Man, get with the other departments. Get with marketing, get with PR, come up with some more detailed plans and some exciting things that you can do with this. If possible, build on past years. Talk about things that have gone on before and build on that. Like last year, we had this going on. This year, we are going to top it with this, that, or the other thing. Those are great things to chat with people about. Now, talking about the kit, I mentioned the kit already. I love this kit. We've done it for several years now, and it's designed to help you at any level in there. Now, the kit this year, I love this. And if you're a customer or a non-customer, you can download the kit. There are some additional things available for like our platinum customers, the higher end customers, definitely available for extra things for that. But it's some extra types of training modules and stuff like that. So don't worry about it. There's a lot of stuff in there already. The idea behind this is to kind of kickstart it and get it going for you and give you a way to get started on this. And again, I love the theme this year. You may see a video about me about Encryptor. That was the person that I ended up drawing because it's about ransomware, and I did a little thing on that. It's cute. It's fun. There's posters, there's cards, there's all kinds of stuff that comes around this kit. And of course, the price is free. That's the best price ever. The kit this year, 4 arcade style villains, and I love the 8-bit stuff. I mean, come on, I'm a little on the older side, right? I'm in my 50s. Man, I remember arcades. That was a big thing for me. So this 8-bit stuff, this is kind of cool. That was my growing up. Takes me back to being a kid. There are training modules specifically made for this kit, which are really cool. It's really nice to have that in there There's those posters I talked about. You can print those up at the FedEx shop or wherever it is that you have around there to be able to print them up. There's lots of ways you can do that, or you can do it like virtually as well. Right? You can start tagging those in emails or whatever. There's also my favorite part, I think, is the weekly planner that helps you structure this kind of stuff. So you're not just out there alone trying to do this. And I think that's the real power of these kits, is not putting you out there alone. Now, when you're choosing content for this month, it's important to understand again that one size does not fit all. Your organizational culture is going to help dictate what it is you're going to use for them. So keep that in mind. This is a good time to throw out some alternative type stuff. It's optional training sometimes, like the Inside Man. If you've never used the Inside Man series as part of your training, this is a great time to get it out to people. It's an episode and season type of training that doesn't feel like training. It's a great story. It's a lot of fun. If you have access to the Inside Man, this is a wonderful time to roll it out to people. I've actually seen organizations to where they roll out one episode a month, and at the end of the year, they have a big party for the finales. It's so cool. But maybe you try some things that you normally wouldn't put it out there. Don't necessarily make it mandatory. Throw it out there as optional, but you may find that people get more involved in this than you might think they do. Now, again, the kit comes with some content especially made for this month. So take a look at those, see if they make sense for you and for your organization, and hopefully use those. Now, the gamification part, I've talked about quite a bit about the phishing tournaments and stuff. There are lots of different things you can do for games, but the idea is you want to get people involved and maybe tap into a little bit of their competitive spirit. That's what makes it so much fun with this. And you can do it at the individual level, depending on the size of your organization. You can break it down to locations, like I've seen financial institutions do by branch, which is really cool. So all of these things are taken in account on that. The individual size, the branch size, you can do all kinds of stuff with that. What you want to do if you're going to gamify those, you want to have some sort of goal that you're measuring against. And ideally, you want to have something going that's kind of a leaderboard. And you may update the results of that daily or weekly, but you definitely want to have a leaderboard in order to do that. So in other words, pick something that you want to do and then put the results of that up. Now, I will warn you, if you're doing a leaderboard, and this goes for anything, this goes for whether you're doing it just during this month or whether you're doing it moving on, don't focus on shaming people that make mistakes. In other words, you don't want to have a leaderboard that says this many people correctly did this, and these are the people that messed up and clicked on things. Do not shame people. It's just not healthy for the overall organization. All right. So remember that when you're doing this gamification stuff, don't shame people. Don't focus on the negatives, but focus on the top people and how they're doing. So choose a way to earn points or some sort of standing without penalizing others. Now, I love those phishing tests that run a lot. And again, I've seen people be able to do it almost daily with phishing attacks. And again, if you say something along the lines of, okay, so for every correctly reported fish, you get an entrance in a raffle for something. That's one way to do it. You can also use those as a way to measure a competition between groups, whatever you want to do, right? So if let's say you give them 20 phishing emails in a month and they get 80% of them, let's say they report 80% of them, that's something that you want to be measuring there, is at that kind of percentage. Now, what you don't want to do is necessarily try to just look at the ignoring stuff, like people who didn't click on a bad email. All right. I think it's much better to drive people towards taking actions such as reporting than taking no action, which isn't very engaging at all. So you want to kind of drive in that, but you want to make it fair too. Now, I've seen people do it on a weekly basis where they have weekly winners, and then maybe those weekly winners get put into a raffle that they get a drawing for something, right? I've also seen it where they have the weekly winners, but then they also have an overall monthly winner. That's another way to do it. It just depends on your organization and what you think is going to work with them. Think about some different ideas that this may work. Now, what you want to do is you want to score in a way that makes it fair, though, because what you're going to have is you may have, especially if you're doing departments or locations, you may have less people in certain areas, or let's say some people go out on vacation or they're gone for a while during this. You don't want to do it on just the raw numbers. Like this group reported 150 phishing emails this month. Well, that's great. They may have had an opportunity of 500, where another group may report 100, but an opportunity of 200. Does that make sense? The percentage is higher for that other group that reported 100. You want to take that into account. You want to think about that when you're doing this, because it wouldn't be fair if you're doing it by a group, if you're using just the raw numbers. So keep that in mind. Consider that when you're setting these things up, right? Now, when you're done with all of this, when you're winding down from it, when the month is over, talk to employees and ask them for their feedback. Say, hey, what about this worked for you? What got you excited? What got you interested? What didn't? It's important to understand, though, that the things that got them interested, you may want to keep that in mind for next year. And you may not want to do the things that most people didn't really care about, right? If they're into gamification, if they're into that kind of thing, you definitely want to do a game next year. Maybe they're not into the games. Hey, it happens sometimes. Okay, cool. We don't put the effort into the games, but instead we do some other things, right? Maybe a lunch party for everybody or something along those lines. There are different things you can do as you wind this down and see what people liked and didn't like. Now, I find that it's awesome to get people to tell you their stories. So time and time again, I've seen where people are like, man, I learned this thing during the training during that month, and it helped me spot somebody trying to rip me off on Facebook Marketplace or something along those lines. I spotted this scam because I learned about something similar in the training. Man, if you get those messages from people, get their story, find out their story, and share that with people, maybe even throughout the year. You want to get permission, of course, from the people who share it, but generally speaking, they're pretty excited about that. They're like, man, I learned something and you helped me, man. They are going to be happy with you for teaching them something. But share those stories with people, share it with other employees so that they understand, hey, wait a minute, you know what? This actually is valuable. And that can roll into your monthly stuff too, because now they're going to go, you know what, if they learned from that training, we get a training course every month or, every quarter or however often you do it. They're going to go, wow, there really is some value to this. So use that for your own PR or marketing move forward. And then also share with leadership. The results that you have there, the successes that you have there, you want to share that with leadership so they see that what you put into it has some value. And of course, there may be huge value, there may not be quite as much, but either way, you can say, hey, check it out. We sent X number of emails, we got X number of reporting. We believe that got people more in the habit of reporting it than they did before. Dude, that's some cool stuff. That's some good stuff for leadership to look at. So keep that in mind as you're winding down, use that. And last but not least, I want to remember this and I want to drive this home. Have fun during this month while you're doing it. I mean, that's the idea. The kit is kind of a fun thing. It's the arcade view. It's always been kind of a fun deal. I think last year we did it on like monsters, which was super cool, right? Different types of monsters. Have fun with it. Make it so that, people don't go, oh, it's training, it's whatever. Make people have a good time. Help people enjoy themselves while they do this. And they're going to walk away with a positive feeling towards it. So next year, they may be more engaged. So that throughout the year, they realize, you know what, these security people, they're not that scary. Maybe I am okay with calling them. I've had it save myself before where somebody who was like, you know what, I wasn't going to waste your time with this, but then I realized it could be a big deal. So I went ahead and picked up the phone and called you. And they said to me, hey, look, I'm probably wasting your time, but, and it actually kept us from wiring out our W-2s at a place to some bad actors that then love to use that to file taxes on everyone's behalf, right? That could have been catastrophic. But they knew me, and they knew that I wasn't somebody who's going to make them feel bad about quote unquote wasting my time. And it turned out it wasn't a waste of time at all. So we want to build those relationships with people where they're more liable to do this, where they're more willing to talk to us about stuff, where they're more willing to open a ticket when something looks good or hit that fish alert button to report those things. That's what we want out of here. Remember, our goal throughout this month is to get people involved, to get people engaged, and most importantly, to change behavior, to move the needle on the behavior. And here's the thing, as behavior changes a little bit throughout, before you know it, the entire culture of the organization starts to change. And I'll tell you, I've worked in a lot of different places, and places that have a strong security culture, it's so much easier to get things done. People understand. You want to roll out MFA. If you think about it from the other standpoint, it's like, okay, now I have to enter a code to log in. It's asking me to do more things than I used to do for the same result. If they don't understand, if they're not security conscious, they're going to look at that in a negative way, as opposed to, cool, I got a new tool that's going to help me protect my accounts. Think about that. It's an important thing to do. Have fun doing it during this time. And seriously, I hope you check out the kit. It doesn't cost you anything. Download it, take a look at it, check it out. If there's things that work for you, awesome. If there's things that don't, hey, at least you have something to go off of and some ideas to kind of do your own thing. But either way, the kit is a fantastic thing. So I hope that you've learned some things here. I hope you've got some ideas of things you can do during this month. This is my LinkedIn link here. Feel free to reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out to me. We can talk about some specifics too. I love to chat about this kind of stuff, but we're almost out of time here. But I hope that you have taken some things away from this. I hope that you've reconsidered what you're doing for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and I hope you're motivated a little bit more about some of the cool things you can do with this. If you're a customer, you're in our community, check out the community. They always talk about cool ways that they've done this in the past or ways that they're planning on doing it in the future. You can get more ideas throughout our Know Before community with that as well. So check it out. Hope to see you out there. And thank you for your time. Have a great Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And you know what? Have a great day.